Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of whatever this show is called. I don't think we have an official name yet, but we are recording live from Studios B3, and I am Spencer Brinkerhoff III. That means that it's SB3, Spencer Brinkerhoff III. That's what we do. So, as we're talking today about Star Wars, the Star Wars Rebels. It's our video roundtable. We're going to talk today about Season 3, Episode 15. This one is titled Legacy of Mandalore. Now, these episodes originally premiered on February 18th of 2017, and they were written by Christopher Yost. So, we can't have a video podcast. We can't have a show without our guests. So, our first guest today we'd like to welcome is Aaron Harris. Aaron is a blogger. He is working with the show Rebels Reaction at Coffee with Kenobi podcast. Man, that's a mouthful. Did I get it all out there, Aaron?
You sure did, Spencer. It's an honor to be here with you today, and it's going to be fun. It was a great episode to review.
Oh yeah. And how long have you been doing Star Wars sort of like podcasting and stuff?
Actually, it's been actually in the podcast realm about 2 years now. Started off just covering Disney events at Star Wars weekends and stuff like that for Coffee with Kenobi, and then took over Rebels Reactions about a year. It was about this past November. It was a year. So
awesome.
It's been quite an adventure to say.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you, Aaron. Thanks for coming out. And our next guest is Connie Shih. Connie, you are an adjunct faculty. I said it all wrong. You are a teacher at Tusculum College in Greenville, Tennessee. Is that's correct? What are you teaching out there?
Yes, I teach technology courses to pre-service teachers who are going in the teacher ed program.
That's
so I
awesome.
teach them all about technology. Yes.
You're teaching teachers.
Yes.
That's awesome. Now, I also saw that on your Facebook page that you are a member of a group called Popular Culture Association in the South. That's something that's devoted to the study of popular and American culture. What do they do?
Well, they're just a group of academics who are really interested in all aspects of pop culture, and they get together and have conferences, and we talk about all aspects like movies, television, any aspect of pop culture, but we look at it from an academic point of view.
Oh, that's awesome. The Denver Comic-Con, they are sponsored by Pop Culture in the Classroom, and they have a similar sort of like a mission statement where they go into the classrooms and they teach, but they use sort of like the comic book and graphic novel format to teach about, all of the other things. They teach about literature, they teach about mythology, and they do it all through the comic books. It's a pretty fun program.
Oh, that's wonderful and very creative too.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Now, last time on Star Wars Rebels, Sabine had just begun her training with the Darksaber, and the hope was that she could use that to unite all of Mandalore. But as she's doing this, she learned she also had to face her past. And in that last episode, I felt like it really ended right where I was ready for it to get started. I was totally excited to see her like meeting up with her family and her mom and finding out who they all were. This episode, we finally get to see it. She returns to her home on Crow Nest. I had to look at the Star Wars like guide to see what that was. I thought they were saying crow's nest, or I don't know what it was. And there she was sort of like met, in this frozen winter wonderland. She was met with a very icy reception as her mother was ready to throw her into jail. They took Gar Saxon along with them so that they could try and unite these houses, and that's the basics of our show. We'll get into all of the details. So the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to throw it out there and kind of say first impressions. Aaron, as you got into this show and you were ready for it to start, and now it's been a couple of days since it's been on, what were your impressions? What stuck with you about this episode?
Well, I mean, I like how you connected it with the last episode too, where the Trials of the Darksaber, where she was having to come to grips with the fact that she's now facing her family for the first time since she left the academy, and we're finding out more about her backstory. Uh, my first impression, I loved this episode.
Yeah.
I was a little shocked by the ending. Um,
Yeah.
Twist I did not see coming, but this was a great dive into the Mandalorian family culture,
Oh yeah.
which I thoroughly enjoyed. And it was nice to see. I mean, because with Star Wars, we've had a lot of stories with father issues and Luke dealing with Anakin and so on and so forth. But it was nice to see Sabine having to deal with her mother
Oh
and
yeah.
seeing that mother-daughter relationship at that point. And of course, it's always nice to see her brother and see other members of Mandalorians. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Mandalorians are just plain awesome to deal with anyway. So
Always.
this was, to me, this was just a great episode, and I walked away satisfied but shocked.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about that shock, but Connie, I want to ask you as well. In retrospect, as we're thinking about this episode, what stood out to you? What was that big wow moment, or your lasting impressions from this show?
My initial lasting impression was visually it looked pretty stunning.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you see the Clan Ren's armor and how much it was contrasted to Sabine's colorful armor, and I
Right.
think that was significant. The symbolism was very significant, and I don't want to jump ahead into the episode, but just the visually, it was really stunning. I mean, just the battle between um, Sabine and oh, and
Was
I'm
that
having a
Fen
mental.
Rao?
Gar Saxon.
not
Gar
Gar
Saxon.
Saxon. Thank you.
Gar
Thank
Saxon.
you.
I said Gar
Yeah.
Saxon at the beginning. Yeah.
Gar Saxon. Just that in battle, just them dueling with the Darksaber and the green lightsaber in the snow on the lake. That
Right.
was really visually, and that sort of reminded me of other aspects of Star Wars too. So
Right.
um,
And
so that
yeah, go
and
ahead.
I
Sorry.
also, oh sorry, I was also, like Aaron said, I really wanted to echo what he said. I was really fascinated by the relationship between Sabine and her mother too, because we haven't seen a mother-daughter relationship explored uh, in that depth on the show right now. So I mean, so that was another lasting impression on me. So
That
I
was
really
wonderful.
enjoyed that.
You know,
Yes.
and I really like that you brought up the contrast in the armor, because Sabine, who has run away and she's left the Mandalorian culture, she's left her family behind, and she is constantly changing herself. She's improving herself. She's becoming brighter, and then we see that this family, the rest of the Ren clan and those people, they're all subdued. I love that you pointed that out. And at first I wondered if it was sort of like a snow camouflage thing, but I think it's probably more symbolic that they were actually felt trapped to a certain degree, and as a result, they didn't have that same expressiveness in what they were doing with their armor.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's sort of like since they were beholden to the Empire, I think their color, I think, like you said, it was more subdued, and it really signified how they were trapped in a way.
Right.
So yes, so I agree.
I thought that was awesome.
Yes.
Now, the next thing that we talked about a little bit before we get into the big battle at the end is I wanted to talk a little bit about the architecture. So we get this big building, that is like sort of the Clan Ren, like their stronghold. And that stronghold is very much, it looks like the one of the Frank Lloyd Wright buildings, and I'm here in Arizona, and there are some Frank Lloyd Wright architectural pieces here, and so it's like I recognize that right away. Aaron, did you recognize any of the architecture or some of the artwork that was used in this episode?
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually did. I mean, where I live I'm in Lakeland, Florida, home of Florida Southern College, which has the majority of the campus is designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. So I felt like I was on campus because I'm there most of the basketball season watching the men and women basketball teams play. So yeah, I felt like seeing that compound. I'm like, I felt like I was walking on campus again. So it was really cool. The only difference is they had snow, and I can't tell you if I've ever seen snow
In
in my part
Florida?
of Florida. So that was the only thing missing.
Right.
But yeah, the architecture was gorgeous. The compound was incredible design. Frank Lloyd Wright's a tremendous designer, so it was a great nod to him in that tribute. I also one thing looking at the compound and everything as it was going on, it also gave me a almost like a James Bond feel
Yeah.
to it as
Yeah.
well, which I liked as well because I'm also a big Bond fan. But
Right.
the all those things combined, just I mean, this show never disappoints when it comes to their designs and their art and their scenery. It's always phenomenal. And this particular episode, just to me went above and beyond what we're used to.
And now that you've mentioned sort of the Bond element, I can see sort of like the skiers coming in over this hill
Yep.
there, and the stronghold is built
Mm-hmm.
onto the side of the mountain, and as a result, it's sort of like hanging out there. It's the perfect place for Fen Rao to just come crashing through the window. It was all like
Exactly.
set up in that part. The other thing that I really liked about this episode is that when we were in that throne room and we saw Sabine's mom sort of like sitting on that throne, behind her was this painting, and the painting had a style to it. I think that I had to look it up a little bit, but I recognized it as the kiss, and it's a sort of an abstract art piece done by, I wrote his name down, Gustav
Clint.
Klimt, right? Klimt?
Yep.
Am I saying it right?
Clint. Yeah.
So
Clint.
I love that those Mandalorians in their backgrounds of even on Mandalore back in the Clone Wars and here again in Star Wars Rebels, we're getting some of these classic sort of like art history lessons tied back into our Star Wars. Connie, did you do the technology stuff at school? But did you recognize any of that art as well?
I recognize the art, and I also recognize the architecture too. I'm not as familiar with art history, but I did notice the painting in the background because it was fairly situated. And what stood out to me again was the color,
Right.
because if you look at the painting in the background, I think her helmet was. We were talking about how subdued they are, in the armors in the episode, but if you look closely at her helmet, it was in the painting it had a little touch of yellow in it, so
Yeah,
they did have a little splash of color.
it did.
So I did notice that. I love the attention to detail. It just as far as the history is concerned, I am not as familiar with the art history, but um I did recognize when you pointed it out. I did make that association.
Awesome.
So
Well, and I
yeah.
think that that's something else that was really fun, and I like that you brought that up again. Is the color in this
Mhm.
Mandalorian stronghold? Everything is subdued, and the color is all subdued. But then the painting that's in the background is bright and colorful, and it's to me, it's sort of like harkened back to their glory days when they were actually sort of like really a powerful and ruling family, and it was bright, it was colorful, and it was a memory of the way that things were. And she even like still had that colorful style in her helmet. Something else that I noticed about her helmet is that it kind of had wings on the side, and not wings, but sort of like it had a point to it. And my first thought was an owl. And with that owl, Sabine has the carnivore on her shoulder. And I thought, okay,
Uh-huh.
I wonder if this is another little subtle nod or I'm just reading into these things. It's what we do
Yeah.
when we watch Star Wars. We
Yeah.
read into it a
Yep.
little bit.
Yep.
So before they got to the planet, though, they were coming in for a landing, and they were shot down by those Mandalorians. But before that, Aaron, I wanted to ask you if you noticed the Mandalorian language.
Yeah, that was quite unique. Having Mandoas being spoken between Sabine and the people through the comm. That honestly took me back. And I as soon as she started talking, I started grinning ear to ear. I'm like,
Yeah.
we got something new here. This is great.
And I think
Like now
it's
I got a
wonderful
new
because
language to learn.
yeah, yeah, new language to learn. It's new, but it's not new. I think that this might be the first time that we've heard it spoken. Do you guys know if that's true or not? Or
I want to say, yeah, I want to say it's the first time we've heard it spoken because it's, of
Mhm.
course, never been done in the movies. Um, and I've never caught it. I don't remember ever hearing it during the Clone Wars. So,
right? So I believe that originally the Mandalorian language that's called Mandoa, is that right? It's like Mando with a
yeah,
little A on the end. That was part of the writings and development that was done by Karen Travis. Is that right? Do you guys know
I
that?
do believe that's correct.
Okay. So
So,
an awesome another little nod back to sort of our legacy line of Star Wars, where we get to have something else that's brought into the rest of this story. So they get down
mhm.
on the planet, they crash, and in this battle, we find out that not only is Sabine there to meet her mother, but she has a brother on this planet as well. So what do you guys think about finding out that Sabine had a brother? Connie, what do you think?
I think it's really neat to find out that she had a sibling. I'm trying to figure out, did they say that relatively in age, is he older than him or younger than him, or do we really know?
Oh, I don't
He's younger.
remember. Was he younger
He's
then?
younger.
Younger?
He's younger.
Okay.
Okay.
He's
Okay,
younger.
younger. Okay. But yeah, it was really neat to see, and I kind of chuckled at Ezra's reaction to all this, and then his little comments. I didn't know that you had a friend, you had a
Right.
brother. I love that offshoot, but I really liked the. I wish I could have seen a little bit more of the dynamic between, or the conversation between, I guess, her and Tristan, her brother, because they had a little bit of a. They obviously knew each other. They all and the initial meeting was a little bit tense,
Yeah.
but I like when they started. When they started talking together through and kind of catching up with each other when they had their sparring session.
Oh
Again,
yeah.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit,
No,
but
no, no. It's a good place to go.
I wish I could have seen a little bit more of that interaction. But I really like how they kind of explored that sibling dynamic between the
Right.
two of them.
Well, I want to talk about that dynamic because I think it's really important, right? So, what we're
Mhm.
seeing here is, Sabine is really nervous about going home because when she was part of the academy, she worked to develop these weapons, and then the weapons were actually used against, the Mandalorians to enslave them. And as a result, she ran away. So everyone considers her a traitor. And they don't really take into account that, she wasn't like trying to enslave the Mandalorian people, but what ends up happening is that they were enslaved because of something that she did. As she leaves, who's left behind? We've got mom, dad, brother Tristan, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then what happens to them as they're left behind? Let's talk a little bit about that dynamic and what it means. Let's start with Tristan. Aaron, what do you think about Tristan and how and what we learn about his sort of like experience being left behind by Sabine?
Well, the family dynamic Sabine is dealing with is quite unique for her situation, and Tristan really had to step up to the plate. I mean, her family was ostracized because of Sabine's actions. Everything they lost everything,
Right.
as they said in the episode. Which, when you're dealing with a family that comes when a clan type environment, that type of culture, you your status is what makes and feeds your family.
Right.
And these, you have people depending on you at this point, not just the family and Tristan and the mother and the father, but you also have everybody that works for them that depend on them. And when you lose that kind of status, it has a trickle down effect.
Right.
So Tristan, of course, definitely, I probably felt the weight of the world on his shoulders when everything happened with Sabine, because then he had to not only have his try to take care of his parents and help them through this time because they're losing everything, but also step up to the plate to essentially man up and try to make make his family basically, I guess, better than where they were because of Sabine.
Right.
So I'm sure there's some resentment there. I mean, he probably lost some of his childhood because of this whole situation, and some of his teenage years are probably were gone. He went from probably hanging out in high school, in middle school, and early high school to front lines of Gar Saxon's Imperial Guard. I
Right.
mean, it's you grow up quickly,
Right.
and I'm sure there's some resentment there because there's a lot that he missed out on, and then obviously there's some uh, resentment from her parents, from Sabine's mom, and we haven't seen her father yet, so we don't even know what that story's going to be yet,
Right. Right.
how
Of
that's going
course.
to play out. So that's that father daughter. Being a father to two daughters myself, I know that relationship I have with my girls. I can't wait to see how that's going to play out.
Well,
Personally.
and that's something else that I was just thinking about is the family dynamic and the family that we all come from and the family that we associate with. So, in my own family, I have four older sisters, and then there's me and my younger brother and a younger sister. So here's what happening, right? Is that my dad, Spencer Brinkerhoff Jr., is waiting for this son, and he's got four older daughters, and then finally the son is born and christened Spencer Brinkerhoff III, right? That's me, and so to a certain degree, I have sort of like this feeling of carrying the family name. Now, I believe, and my brother, I don't know if he listens to any of this stuff or not, but I believe that my brother, he's actually more like my father than I am, and they get along wonderfully. We get along great too, but they're so much more. They're similar to each other, and as a result, I think that he struggled a little bit with being the younger brother. And so here we are. Think about, I think that Aaron, you said middle school or something for Tristan, right? So think about
Middle school,
going,
early high school. Yeah.
right. Think about going to school and everybody goes, oh, see Tristan Wren over there. It was his sister. It's all his father. So he's got a certain sense of responsibility to reclaim the honor for the family, but also to sort of like stand on his own and defend that, and be his own man. But another dynamic is Connie, and I want you to talk about this a little bit if you have any thoughts. But another dynamic there is that we've gotten Tristan's point of view and how he had to deal with this a little bit, right? But then the whole time Sabine doesn't want to come home because she feels that everyone thinks that she's a traitor. Let's talk about Sabine's mom a little bit and how she reacts to her first sort of like encounter with Sabine coming back. And then, Connie, what do you think about what Sabine's mom really did in sort of like letting her daughter go?
Well, I think initially when they saw each other, she received a really chilly welcome.
Right.
And the first thing she wanted to do was have the guards come and take her daughter to jail,
Right.
and imprison her. And then it was only after Sabine took out the Darksaber that she rethought her. She was pretty startled that her daughter would have such a saber. But then I thought it was interesting when they were talking, when they were having the conversation outside of the complex, when she said, "Walk with me," and they had that conversation, how even with they were talking about how Sabine was trying to give her point of view about why she left,
Right.
and then the mother was trying to give her point of view. Even she thought. I think if I recall right, she thought that Sabine was safer if she stayed away rather than coming back,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
and that
Exactly.
she tried to, and she was trying to, the mother was trying to keep everything together to reestablish honor, you know, the status in the family. That's why she made the pact with Gar Saxon and everything just to reclaim some status. But I thought it was interesting how even when even when they're talking about the Darksaber, uh, here it comes back to the tradition because the mother was saying, asking her, "Did you win it from Maul
Oh,
in the
right.
duel?"
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
and so even then she was trying to question,
Yeah.
question Sabine's I guess credibility
Yeah, I think that that's a good
or
way to
respect
say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
respect or everything. So, I mean, I think they were still trying. After so long, I got the impression that they were trying to size each other up to see,
Right.
to see what's changed. But I think um, I, I really thought that was that through that conversation they were just trying to figure each other out, and they realized they still have their differences, and they couldn't see each other's point of view, but I think they were working toward that.
Oh, yeah.
So
And and
yes.
and that was one of the things that I thought, and you've got it right there, is that a loving mother
Hmm.
recognized that her daughter would be safer by letting her go, by letting her be branded the traitor, because then she was going to stay away and it's going to be more dangerous for her to come back. But even
Yeah.
then, she's still sort of like holding on to those Mandalorian customs and the honor. And did you win it from Maul? But still,
Yeah.
it was harder for those people who stayed behind. But in the end, you know, Mom loved her enough to let her go. And I
Uh-huh.
thought that was a pretty interesting character point there as well.
Yes. And I'd like to bring up something else too that I thought was really interesting. That I learned, I think, from Rebels, the Recon, the after show that the Star Wars
Oh
they
yeah,
do
right.
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
When they were interviewing, Andy was interviewing, I think either Dave or Pablo. They were either one of them. I forgot which one said that her Sabine's father actually married into the Ren family.
Oh yes,
Into the
yes.
Ren
Yep.
clan, and that was a really interesting dynamic to me because I thought usually when we think about families, we think about the father, and the status and marrying into the father's family as um honor or something. But I thought it was really interesting that it was kind of switched around,
Right,
and that the father married into the mother's, the the clan Ren and with the mother having the status.
right.
I thought that was a really unique twist on it.
Yeah, and the whole thing
Yeah.
is being Sabine's story and having Sabine sort of like be the hero of the story, and then
Hmm.
not taking anything away from that Ren name by
Yeah.
saying, oh, it was this patriarchal line of authority instead of being matriarchal, and that was magnificent. That it was like,
Mhm.
oh, it's like, oh, I'll take your name, honey. This is awesome. I love that they
Hmm.
added that part too. Thank you for
Hmm.
bringing that
Yeah.
up and remembering that part. So
Hmm.
then, one of the other the characters in all of this that we haven't got to very much is Fen Rao. So, Aaron, I felt like when we first started this up, we've got Fen Rao who's hiding in the Phantom too. I was like, he's being smuggled in the cargo the
Yep.
cargo bay again, right? And then
Oh
I
yeah.
had I had a really funny thought that I want to share with you guys as we talk about Fen Rao's role in all of this. But my thought was that in this episode, Fen Rao, I noticed that the color of his armor is blue and white. He played the role of R2D2 in this episode. Am I right?
Hmm.
So he goes
Hmm.
Yeah.
in, he stays behind, then he sneaks the sabers, and then he crashes in at the end and launches the sabers out so that our Jedi's can save the day. He is R2D2 in this episode.
A bit taller R2D2, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Right,
he's
right.
an
I
R2.
I thought that was pretty funny thought. So if Fen Rao being another character in this story, Aaron, what did you think about his role in sort of like preparing Sabine for this battle, for this mantle, and his role in sort of like helping to facilitate all of this? Is he going to be the leader of the Mandalore? You know, is he going to be the one that's going to potentially wield the Darksaber, or has he served his role?
I think he has served his role. I don't think we've seen who is going to wield the Darksaber yet. I think that's still coming. I think, but I also believe that Sabine wouldn't be where she is right now by the end of this episode if it was not for Finn Rao
Right.
in Trials of the Darksaber, the last episode, because he really stepped up and helped with her training. He encouraged her. He gave her a sense of home at that point,
Yeah.
of who she was, being a Mandalorian, and he provided her with the Mandalorian fisticuff things.
Yeah, I can't remember the technical name of the gauntlets right now.
Yeah.
Tom's going to kill me for not remembering.
There's Jedi tools and
Yes.
anti-Jedi tools, what they used back in the day. But he provided those, and he provided encouragement for her. And even here, he even said that he knows. She was talking, worried about her parents there at the beginning. He even said, he goes, I know. He goes, family's important to the Wrens.
Right.
Right. They're going to welcome you. They're not going to just shut you out when you first arrive. He thoroughly encouraged her through this whole thing, and supported her when they needed it there at the end. So yeah, I think he is a vital part of her story. But I think his story will continue. I don't see him being the Darksaber wielder. I think we are going to see somebody else step up and take that with the blessing of Sabine. And I don't, honestly, and I don't think it's going to be a Wren.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, you sort of like with that comment, let's get into sort of like this final battle scene, and then we can talk about Sabine and the end of this episode and where she ended, and potentially what we think is in the future for Sabine. And I wanted to start by saying that I thought it was a little bit odd in the big battle scene. So Fen Rao comes busting through the glass, and he dispenses out the lightsabers, and everything starts going like crazy. And we got to see Tristan sort of like show his true colors, and that he was going to stay with the family. In that moment when we knew this was all about Sabine, in that moment when Ezra surrendered his lightsaber and threw it to Sabine so that she could defend her mom. And I thought it was a little bit odd that, Ezra would throw that, but I mean, it works with the story. Connie, what did you think about sort of like that exchange with, the battle and the lightsaber versus the Darksaber, and Ezra's part of that, or maybe not his part, just whatever you thought about it?
Well, initially, I thought I was a little bit stunned. I was like, wow, that Ezra would toss the saber to him, but she's pretty proficient. She's proven herself pretty proficient in that training, even though she's not. We wouldn't think that she was so force sensitive, but
Right.
But there's a little point I wanted to point out later in regards to that. But I thought it was really neat that Ezra would toss the saber to her instead of tossing his other weapon that he was shooting from.
Right.
But another thing I thought was unique that really caught my attention though was later when they were actually battling on the ice, when they were battling the two sabers, that they used John Williams music a little bit over there.
Yep.
Now, Aaron,
And
was that Luke Skywalker's theme? Is that what it was, or did you, Connie?
It was the Force thing.
The Force theme? Oh,
it was a glimpse of the Force theme.
now
Kevin Kiner kind of weaved that into his composition there, which just was perfect.
Right.
Yeah, Yeah, and that moment really stood out for me. I mean, I got the hairs on my arm got a little. I got goosebumps a little bit because he doesn't really he uses John Williams music really sparingly. So when he does use it, it's very significant.
Yes.
So I was really curious to see what that means, but
Well, and I
uh,
want to jump in a little bit right there because I think that
uh
you started to bring up something that was really important. In the
yeah.
last episode, when Ezra was sort of training with Kanan and helping Sabine learn all of this stuff, they pointed out that the Force, it's back to that actual feeling of the Force is in all of us, and
Mhm.
some of it's closer to the surface for some of us than others, and those are the people that are natural Jedi. But just because she's not a Jedi doesn't mean that she can't draw upon the Force. So Aaron,
Mhm.
thank you for sort of like identifying that was the Force music, because that,
Mhm.
Connie, that makes it so much more important in that scene, is that she was using the gauntlet, she was using the shield, she was using all of the skills that she had, and
Yeah.
she was drawing upon her own Force abilities and using them with her other skills. Connie, that's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Exactly. That was going back to what Kanan was saying in the previous episode when he was explaining to her when she said it was so heavy. The saber was so heavy.
Oh, right.
Well, she was talking about the dark saber, but I think what 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 Kanan was saying it could apply to any saber that you have to channel all your abilities into that
Right.
saber, and that's what makes the saber gives it
And
its energy.
and I
So
think
I
that
think that
he
was uh-huh.
yeah, he also said something in that part about like when you use the force like flows through the saber, and then you have more force ability because of your connection to the saber. Do you remember that part, Aaron?
Yeah, I do remember he's saying something along those lines. Absolutely, and what I connected her when I heard that forcing, I actually connected more a little bit to um, Sherwood from Rogue One,
Oh, right.
Oh
because
yeah.
he's not a Jedi, but
Oh,
he's
you're gonna make me
the
cry,
Force is
man.
with him, and
You're gonna make me. Don't
I
do
know
it.
with
Don't. No, I'm
the
gonna
Force is
switch
with me.
video. Okay,
I,
just on you there.
it's ugh, that's where I went to. I mean,
Right.
we have a Force user that he's not a Jedi, but he's sensitive to the Force.
Right.
So it makes me want to see where Sabine's going to go with this newfound almost connection at that point to what she sees Kanan and Ezra use on a daily basis, like it's second nature to him. So definitely, I think she's starting to learn a little more of a somewhat of a connection with the Force as a not necessarily a full fledged Force wielder, but a enough that it aids her in her fighting. And that's why I think during that last episode, the Trials of the Darksaber, when everything was going down and she was getting frustrated before she had that big breakthrough at the end, she goes storming off, and what happens? Bendu turns around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bendu, the
Yeah.
the,
Mm,
the good evil
In the middle. The
middle
the
middle
middle
of the road
Bendu.
yeah.
Jedi, the
Mm,
middle Force wielder. She storms off, and he turns around. He watches her walk away. So
Right.
and he's got that
yeah.
that considering look on his
Mm,
face that's just his. You can see the wheels kind of spinning there.
Right.
So I think she's coming more into a force type wielder situation,
mm,
just not necessarily a Jedi at that point. I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up, they talk if she winds up down the road being connected to that first Jedi they talked about, that
Mm,
first Mandalorian Jedi. If there's a connection between her and him
right.
at that point.
Well, I think that we're at the point where we get to talk about the ending of this episode, right? So,
mm.
I I think that there was a preview or a tease that made it look like Sabine was actually killed. Did you guys see that beforehand, or?
Yes.
So I didn't actually see that, and so I went into the episode sort of like blind of that tease that she was being seized. So Connie, did you see that as well? Did you see that like potentially she had been killed, or did you just see it in the episode?
I just saw it in the episode, so I didn't see it in the tease. So when I saw it in the episode, I was in a way I was a bit taken aback, but in a way I was not.
What do you mean?
So
So you were taken aback because, okay, just to sort of like to recap, we get
mhm.
Sabine's Dooku moment, right? So
Yeah.
she's there, she's got both of the lightsabers, they're crossed at his neck, and then she chooses not to kill him, right? And as
Yeah.
she's walking away, he pulls out the gun, and you hear the fire, and then she kind of like starts, and then you see it pulls
The
back,
m-
and it
the
wasn't actually,
mother.
yeah, mom took
Yeah.
him out, right?
Mom did it. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what we see in sort of like the surprise moment. So, Connie, when you said that you were surprised, but then you weren't, did you think to yourself, what, that they couldn't kill Sabine?
Well, I thought. Well, wait a minute. If for a split second, I'm like, no, they can't go there. But then afterwards, I'm like, yeah. I mean, it was hard to. It was hard to. It's hard thinking back to my initial reaction to the episode. It was hard to figure out what I was thinking. I just remembered that I was a split second surprised, shocked, and then I'm like, oh, when I saw the mother, turn out to be the mother shot, I said, okay, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So I don't. It's been a while since I've seen the initial episode, so I just remember being really surprised.
Yeah.
Being really
How about you,
surprised.
Aaron? I mean, when you saw that, was it like, no, she can't be dead?
Well, when you hear that when she turns and walks away from Gar Saxon, and that blaster comes out, and you hear that shot fire, and it's just a close, tight shot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sabine's face, and you see her eyes just almost double in size immediately.
Right.
I was sitting there. I immediately got nauseated. I'm like, they're
Mm,
not taking Sabine out
mm,
of this. They can't
yeah.
take Sabine out of this. And then it backs up, and you see it's Saxon who was shot, and her eyes are doubled in size because it was her mom that shot him.
Right.
Mm,
Right.
At that point, I was relieved,
yeah.
honestly, at that point, because when I saw her eyes after that shot, I'm like, oh my god, they shot her.
Right.
Mhm,
I
Right.
was like, she's been shot, and
mhm.
I half expected next thing you know to hear Ezra screaming and going all Anakin on Saxon at that point.
No.
Exactly. Um,
Yeah.
but it didn't play out that way, and I'm
Yeah.
pleased. But yeah, it was quite a surprising moment there.
Now,
Well,
but with that, it's interesting. So, at the end of our last season, we saw that Dave Filoni was sort of clearing the deck a little bit. So, we had a lot of the Inquisitors that had been part of the show, and we needed to get them out of the way so that we can get closer to our episode 4 timeline, so that we can really get the focus being on, we've got Vader, we've got, Obi-Wan out there and stuff like that. No, nobody else. And
Yeah.
and and I think that he actually said in one of the Rebels recon that he was sort of clearing the deck, and getting things cleared out. So here we are. We're closing in on the end of season 3. There has not been a confirmed season 4, right? Not
no.
actually. And we know what happens with Hera, in her sort of like cameo in Rogue One. And so it gets you thinking a little bit, are we starting to clear the deck again? Are we spreading everybody out and we're breaking down the Ghost Crew? I think this is the last time that we're going to see Sabine this season. What do you guys think?
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
Mm,
And for me, with the end of the episode, and I don't know if you're wanting to go into that immediately, but
Yeah, why not? I
with
mean, we're
that,
good.
yeah,
yeah.
with the end of the episode, when she tells everybody she's staying because she can do more good on Mandalore than she can with the Ghost Crew at this immediate moment. So she leaves the crew. She stays behind.
Right.
To me, I had the same emotions at the end of this episode as I did the end of season 5 of the Clone Wars when Ahsoka walked away from the Order.
Mm,
It had that
Ah,
sense of finality for me.
right.
So, because
Now, was it
you're
also
exactly right.
was it a sense of loss? Because I felt a little bit of loss. There was a sadness to Ahsoka's departure and
Mhm.
everything that she had suffered, but she had changed as a character so much that
Yeah.
there was that sadness. So was it in that way, sort of that sadness and loss, or what was the further comparison between those two events?
Well, for me, with the fact that, I mean, knowing that we have no confirmation of season four, it's not there. We don't know anything. There's rumors, it's shot and in the can already, ready to go, but until Disney and Lucasfilm say it's coming, we have no confirmation. So with that in mind, seeing that walk away, it was more not necessarily the sadness of it, because you're right, Ahsoka had gone through such a transformation through the series, and that last arc for her was such a life changing arc for Ahsoka.
Right.
Uh, is you felt, you were sad because it was a heartbreaking moment at that point, um, walking away from everything she had known into the unknown. This did not have that sadness attached to it that I felt for Ahsoka, in the fact that she's leaving the Ghost Crew, but she's going from one family, she's going
She's
home to her other
back.
family.
Yeah, she's
She's
going back to
exactly,
her family.
she's going back to her home, back to her real family, with the intent of trying to continue to help Mandalore, save her father from his being a captive on
Right.
the main Mandalore planet. And so there's still that sense of hope that we've had through Rebels, the hope of beating the Empire and making it better. So that sense of hope is still there, because she's still in the fight, just in a different capacity. But the sense of loss is there because now we're not seeing her,
Right.
and I don't expect to see her, unfortunately, the rest of the season. I
Right.
hope we do. I seriously hope we do,
Yeah, I
and
don't
I,
think
I
it.
seriously hope we carry this on into through season four as well. If please, God, please give us that season four.
Yes.
But
Well, but
it
yeah,
is something.
I would love a season four as well, and I think it's coming. But at the same time, I like that there is a story plan and that things can end and move on to the next thing. So with that said,
Yeah.
Connie, what about you? Your impressions of Sabine and her choice to sort of like go back to her family and leave her Ghost Crew family, and whether or not she's going to be around, anymore for this season. What are your thoughts on Sabine and her finale here for Star Wars Rebels?
I think I think hmm. I don't think this is the end. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Sabine. I think we will see her, whether it's at the very either. I'm trying to think, how many episodes do we have till the end of the season? Maybe
Is it
six,
four?
Five,
7, 5,
Five
4,
more?
four.
Okay.
four more.
Yeah. So I think there might be a slight possibility that we might see her at the season finale, but I'm more tending to think that we'll see her we'll see her again in the future, possibly, hopefully, cross fingers, in season four, if there's a season four,
Right.
because um because something that she said that really struck a bell with me, that made me think that she is not we're not seeing the end of her. I mean, that we'll still see her on Rebels at some point. Is that she said that when she was saying goodbye to Ezra and Kanan, she was saying that once that she frees, well, once she saves, she tries to freeze her father from
Right.
Mandalore. That she will, that then that time they will rejoin the fight, with the
Right.
rebellion.
Mhm.
So that kind of leaves the door open to see that she will rejoin it, but it's just a matter of when. I tend to agree that we won't see her at the um see at the end of I don't think we'll see her at the rest of the season, but I think it was although I did feel sad that the ghost crew was breaking up, even the family was breaking broke up anymore. In a way, I thought that it was it was fitting for Sabine, because she's been on the run for so long.
Oh,
I mean, she
good
was
point.
running away for so long
Yeah.
that finally she stopped. She put her she put a line. She finally told herself, and took a stand, and she said, I'm not. I think she even said it was, I'm stop. It's time to stop running,
Right.
and for
Right.
me
Yeah.
to help my family. So I thought that was very fitting for her. No, I'm really interested to see how the ghost, how the rest of the crew will uh, carry on without her
Right.
absence, because going into the season, with we all heard that with Kanan being blind and everything, that Sabine would take up a greater role,
Yeah.
step up, and she has it to some, she has in quite a few episodes to have, so to see to have her gone, even though Kanan you know has come to terms with his own situation and can still fend for himself, and so it's still a loss of the a core member of the Ghost
Oh
Crew, the
yeah.
original Ghost Crew. So I'm just curious to see how the rest of the crew is gonna react with her
Right.
absence in later
And
episodes.
and this is a part also where I need to give a shout out to my good friend and former co-host with the Star Wars, Eric Geller. We when we were reviewing the Star Wars Rebels, we would refer to poor Ezra, forever alone Ezra. At the
Yeah.
very end, here we are. Sabine has decided that she's going to stay and she's not going to go back with the crew, and she gives
Mm.
Kanan a hug, and Ezra just gets to stand onto the side and watch forever alone. Eric, you coined it. We're using it, and there she is, saying goodbye to the crew. So we're closing in on about an hour here with our discussion. It's been wonderful. One of the last points that I want to make before sort of I get some last thoughts from you guys is that this is another parallel for me. So Kanan and Ezra, in my mind, represent a new Jedi Order. Kanan didn't have all of the formal training, and as a result, he's sort of mixing sort of his world-wearied sort of like sensibilities with the Jedi training, and they've got a little bit more of an openness. In the same way that they have become a new sort of like Jedi, Sabine is bringing Clan Ren into a new sense of what it means to be a Mandalorian. Her mother has intervened with the battle when, she said at the outset that she wasn't supposed to do that. No one was supposed to interfere. She's also openly rebelled against Gar Saxon by murdering him, right? Or
Yep.
killing him. I guess it's not murder if it was sort of in that battle there. But in the end, this is a symbol of the new sort of like Mandalorian order as well as the new Jedi order. So, Aaron, I want to throw things over to you for a minute. Closing thoughts, closing impressions about the episode. What do you think?
Well, this episode definitely was a great Sabine episode. It told a lot of story. It had a lot of emotion. It had a lot of depth in the episode, and it's a serious episode when they're using Kanan and Ezra for the comic relief,
Right.
and which
And
Ex-
Chopper
so
too.
and
and
Chopper
Chopper.
Chopper not
Excellent
as
point.
much,
Right.
Yep.
Chopper wasn't in there as much as I would have liked,
Mm.
but Kanan and Ezra definitely had their moments when it comes to the comic relief, but it was a very, very, very heavy episode, and I loved every moment of it. It gave us an insight into Mandalorian culture that we had seen a lot of during the Clone Wars, but it gave us a more in-depth look at a family structure that we had not seen before when it comes to the Mandalorians with Sabine and her mother, and of course Tristan as well. So it was enjoyable. I'm not thrilled that Sabine is gone, but you know what? Her story's not over. One way or another, her story's not over, and I can't wait to see where they take her story
Right.
from here.
Thank you.
So
And Connie, what about you? Closing thoughts. What was your takeaways and final impressions of this episode?
Well, I love this episode paired with the previous episode that called the Darksaber. I sort of wish they didn't have this the 4 week gap in between. It was
Yeah,
sort of
I
hard
know, right?
to do that because because it felt like it was like you said at the beginning, it was sort of building up to a climax, and then
It just ended.
then we had to wait. Yeah, but together those episodes were really. I think were really the strongest of the season too, and I really love this episode because we got into a lot of the Mandalorian culture and tradition, and we got to see like I guess two generations point of view, from Sabine's mother and from Sabine. And also I love the fact that we're getting to see other clans. I didn't know too much about Mandalorian culture. I mean, I'm still getting to Clone Wars and things. So I'm reviewing those episodes in the back, but it it really it's really neat to see these other clans emerge other than the protectors
Right, of Concord
um
Dawn, yeah.
or the Concord Dawn or the Clan Ren or or the other clan. So it's really neat to see, and I really love to see Sabine's backstory, and it revolved. I think the core takeaway I got was just whether it's the Ghost Crew or the Clan Ren, it just revolves around family too and
Yeah.
tradition.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, for core, and I love that fact that I love that they explored the different types of family dynamics among the Ghost Crew um and among Clan Ren, and I
Right.
thought it was and I thought it was neat to see Sabine grow through all these, not just through this episode, but episode was fitting to where she is right now, as opposed to where she was really in the back of season
Oh
one,
yeah.
season one. So I thought
It
it was
was
fitting for where she is
right,
now.
right. And
Yeah,
we don't necessarily want to say this was a fitting end for Sabine's story,
yeah,
but as far
yeah,
as the Star Wars Rebels, she has had that growth. She has had her
yeah,
story, and she is in a
Mhm.
place now where she is ready to take the lead.
yeah.
Connie, if people want to get a hold of you or want to follow you on Twitter, I've got your Twitter handle up. Is that just Connie Shih,
Yes,
ConniEshih? And that's the
correct.
Twitter handle, right?
Yes. And if
Excellent.
they want to get me on Instagram, I'm also on Instagram too. It's Connie She 97
Excellent. Thank you
too.
very
So you
much.
can get. Thank you.
And Aaron, if
It's been
people,
fun.
yeah, yeah, it's always fun. Aaron, if
Hmm.
people want to get a hold of you, where can they grab you at then?
Well, best place is Twitter. My personal Twitter is ta Harris 121079. That's my personal Twitter. Of course, also I host Rebels Reactions for Coffee with Kenobi. You can also hit me up on the show Twitter, which is simply at Rebels Reactions.
Excellent. Thank you. And so
Thank you.
in closing here, sort of like my final thoughts is at the end of this episode, we see that Sabine is getting ready to go off on her own sort of like personal mission. She has said that she is not Mandalore's leader, but she'll find the person who is. Potentially, this person could be Katie Sackhoff. Bo
Yep.
Katan that's the character that she played. I think that it was
Mhm.
slipped a little while back that she actually recorded some lines. So
Yep.
Bo Katan, we also know, is the sister of Satine, the one that got away from old Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Natural born leader. Potentially, she will be the one that is found. Also, I found a quote that said, this is a quote from Dave Filoni. He says, "It is very possible that we haven't seen the last of Sabine." He said it pretty definitely. For Sabine, hopefully the adventure will continue, and that would be great because we can change her hair yet again. We we love Star Wars. We love what Dave Filoni has done to lead this group and bring these legacy characters back in. We can't wait to see the next episode and see what's going on for the future. Thank you guys for visiting with me today. I'm Spencer Brinkerhoff III. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at SpencerB3. And I've got a little logo animation here. Thank you for joining us for Studios B3 Live. We'd love to have you, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you, everybody, and good night. Bye-bye.